We are talking about an Israeli Jewish scholar of the getting in hot water for saying everything that I have learned and everything that I have studied points to this amounting to points to what my country is doing amounting to a, and they're going, nah, you're out. What is this? I can't. You aren't any different than the Nazis who cheered as Jews were stuffed in the gas chambers. That's how history will remember you too. I have no idea what this is. I don't know what this post was. The post I can't see. Twitter is a monstrous shithole. Check her account too. I can't check Mikhail Sabra's account because the post doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. Yeah. Oh, this was something that I was going to briefly touch on, of course. Rutger Bregman, everyone's favorite social democrat, who's very upset with the left, which is not surprising. When you're a social democrat, especially a European-style social democrat, you got to indicate the left and how tanky the left is. But aside from that, here's Rutger Bregman talking about something that is important. Studies NRC spoke to 7 renowned researchers about Gaza. They are not nearly as divided as public opinion. Public opinion is not really divided on this either, by the way. Without exception, they qualify the Israeli actions as genocidal. And according to them, almost all of their colleagues agree with that. Rutger Bregman says, incredibly powerful investigation in Dutch newspaper NRC. 7 of the world's leading scholars, including renowned experts, describe Israel's actions in Gaza as genocidal. And according to them, nearly all their peers agree. These are not activists. They include scholars and the heads of major research centers, scholars from Israel and the US and the UK, Australia and the Netherlands. And they are not divided. Without exception, they describe Israel's actions as genocidal. Ras Segal, Israeli scholar, who very famously wrote an article in the Jewish Currents literally in the beginning, okay? On like October 10th or something, he wrote an article. What is this? Project Liberal. No leftist can kill me. I'm no leftist. Liberals, fascism. What? Why are you showing me this? This is so stupid. I don't care about that. Okay. Ras Segal famously wrote an article. He is a Israeli Jewish scholar, okay? He wrote for a Jewish magazine called Jewish Currents that friend of the show, Noah Colwin, used to be the senior editor of. He wrote an article titled A Textbook Case of... He wrote this article on October 13th, 2023. October 13th, 2023. 6 days after October 7th. Okay? Melissa Barrera, who was at the time on the Scream horror series, okay, an actress in Hollywood, posted snippets of this article. She was subsequently and promptly fired from the upcoming Scream production. And the studio said she was fired for anti-Semitism. And they literally pointed to her putting this article on her fucking story as why she was being anti-Semitic. Lest we forget the mania that everyone was experiencing in the early days of the Palestinian population in Gaza. Megaphonic says, I keep going back to Theodore Miron because the audacity of modern Israel supporters to think they know better than a Nazi labor camp survivor who was literally in the Israeli government and became the preeminent legal voice in preventing future. And he unanimously decided with the ICJ panel of experts that Netanyahu Gallant committed war crimes. Imagine thinking you know better than that guy. Yeah. As I've joked around before, it's like if he comes into America, they're sending his ass to CCOT. You know what I mean? Dude can't catch a break. It's not one, but 2 fucking neo-Nazi movements that he is like experiencing. Think about that. Literally, if he, maintaining that opinion, came to the United States of America, America would literally fucking revoke his visa status and ship his ass, his 98-year-old ass, to CCOT, to a separate concentration camp. The first one wasn't Neo, but yeah, exactly. 2 Nazi movements. How insane. Okay, he's a U.S. citizen, so maybe they wouldn't, but they would maybe question him at the Customs and Border Patrol at the point of entry into the country. Hey, just wanted to say you're a pussy. I hope I never see you IRL. Why? What are you going to do? If you saw me IRL, would you not be able to hold yourself back from my Is that why? Is that what it is? You're like, dude, you're, I have these uncontrollable urges to immediately get down on my knees and you dry. And I really hope I don't see you in public because, oh, I would try so hard. I'd be like, please, sir, please. I want to you so bad. It's Zoltan. The NBA Circle Jerk sub is talking about you. That one Pacers fan after getting bullied by classy Knick fans. America deserved 9/11. What the? Oh, that's funny. What is this picture? I don't know. I don't know where this picture's from. Oh, Donnie posted about me on his Instagram story. Oh, yeah. Street artist Dibu Dada walked up to me in Madrid and asked me to bring this back to America for Hasan Piker. Yeah, Donnie. But yeah, this is crazy. It's always funny when you got like CNN journalists or New York Times journalists or like journalists who, you know, have a massive media footprint, turning around being like, dude, every time I'm in public, for the most part, the people that come up to me are just like HasanAbi heads. So Ross Segal, getting back to people criticizing Israel's actions, the evidence is overwhelming. Over 53,000 Palestinians killed, at least 15,000 children dead, blocked food, water, medicine, relentless bombing of hospitals and tent camps, and repeated calls by Israeli ministers for starvation and the destruction of Gaza. Genocide is a process. It's not a binary switch, and it's not about matching. It's about deliberate policies like forced starvation. What the fuck is this? Eric Maddox, an American podcaster from California, USA, was arrested and brutally beaten recently today by the Israeli occupation forces. He was filming the settlers' provocative protests and settlers' assaults against Palestinian residents in the old city of Hebron, southern occupied West Bank. No way. I mean, not no way. Yes, way. This happens all the goddamn time. Only Israel can be a client state of the USA and freely abuse American citizens. Yes, it's true. For Melanie O'Brien, president of International Association of Scholars, the deciding factor was the deliberate withholding of food, water, shelter, and sanitation. For Ross Segal, it was the overtly genocidal statements by Israeli leaders. The pattern is similar. It's simply too familiar. Mass killings, dehumanizing rhetoric, a clear disregard for civilian life, and a refusal to comply with orders from the International Court of Justice to allow aid and stop incitement. Even cautious voices have changed. Israeli scholar Shmuel Liederman opposed the label until he saw the ICJ rulings ignored, the Rafah crossing sealed, and credible statements of over 100,000 deaths. Now he says this is a... Experts have initially been more reluctant to call this, but the gap with the other scholars is narrowing. It's not easy, says Uğur Ümit Üngör. Especially, he's Turkish. Especially when you're thinking about the continuity of your funding. The accusation of anti-Semitism has had a chilling effect on free speech about Israel's conduct. Harvard dismissed 2 directors of its Middle East Center. Ross Segal's appointment as head of the Center for Studies at the University of Minnesota was revoked. Again, okay. Ross Segal's appointment as the head of the Center for Studies at the University of Minnesota, an American university, was revoked. Ross Segal is Jewish and Israeli and a scholar of the... Like, dude... What are you doing? What are you saying? Like, it makes no sense. We are talking about an Israeli Jewish scholar of the getting in hot water for saying everything that I have learned and everything that I have studied points to this amounting to a points to what my country is doing amounting to a, and they're going, nah, you're out. That is crazy. As a Christian, if I judge from the pictures alone, neither would be the ideal choice. That being said, wait, what? From the pictures alone, what was the issue? That I paint my fingernails? As a Christian, you got some issues with that? Who gives a shit? What? Even from those photos alone, what do you hate about Andrew Tate? Those photos alone show nothing. He's just smoking a hookah. As a Christian, what does that have to do with anything? That being said, what makes you more than what is shown the correct way to be a better role model for young men growing up? I don't know. Treating marginalized people with respect, what do you prefer? A insecure bully who constantly redirects all of their anger and resentment towards those who have less than them? What do you think is a more Christian tenet? You know, being kind to your neighbor, being kind to those who have less than you, or constantly being mean to them with the hopes of making yourself look better, with the hopes of presenting yourself as above them. Also, he's, you know, under investigation for sex trafficking, but there's that too. So, you know, you make up your own mind as a Christian, or maybe ask Grok. I don't know. Like, I am not a by the book Muslim by any means, right? But in terms of my output, in terms of how I live my life, in terms of the values that I present and the values that I hope others will learn, like my mentality has always been, you know, I can't say whether there is a God or not, or I can't say whether organized religion was correct about how to live your life. But if there is an omnipotent, omnipresent being up there, and I'm dead one day and I go up there, I don't think they're going to be like, oh, you ate pork, you. You know what I mean? I think they'll probably look at a lot of the other things that I have done in the process and go, you know, pretty decent output overall. And it's not the fear that I might get judged by a being that causes me to behave the way that I do. You know, it'd be kind of weird if someone was like, well, you know, you ate pork, which is pretty up, or you drank alcohol, which is completely unacceptable. Sorry. Yeah, you did a lot of charity your whole life. You tried to help others your whole life. But honestly, the pork thing I can't get over. Meanwhile, you got like what? Passing through, if they didn't eat pork and and they didn't drink alcohol, like get the fuck out of here. That doesn't seem like a normal calculus, right? And also, if that's the case, then I don't want to be there anyway. You know, I don't want to be in that club. A leading German scholar in the field speaking on condition of anonymity describes the topic as toxic in German. Simply raising the possibility, he says, gets you instantly labeled an anti-Semite. He adds that if another country were responsible for these actions, Germans would raise the alarm without hesitation and call it genocidal violence. But just as they did after the Russian massacre in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Under the convention, countries are obligated to act, not when it is proven, but when there's a risk of it. That threshold has long been crossed. It is not another war crime. It is the crime of crimes, the deliberate attempt to destroy a people. That's what's happening in Gaza, says the world's top experts. I'm grateful that newspapers like the NRC are following their journalistic and moral compass. By the book, Muslim here, the calculation at Judgment Day's overall output, not just random bad actions. Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of that, here it is.
In the dust of Jabalia, there seems little left to destroy. And yet, fresh strikes, more panic, and another desperate search for survivors.
My message to the world is it is enough. Come to our aid. We cannot walk anymore, nor eat, nor speak. We lost our houses, our children and youth are gone, our children's future is lost.
Some lives ended. It was a long night for civil defence volunteers in Gaza's north. This was a family home. 3 are dead, many more are missing. If efforts to dig through the rubble in the dark look hopeless, it's because in the end they were. In Gaza City, Al-Shifa Hospital, the ambulances aren't bringing in patients, they're delivering the dead. Unknown child, the note on this body bag reads. Others, though, can be identified and given an all too rushed farewell before they're taken away to be buried. At least 140 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours, according to local authorities. The IDF stepped up its strikes, launching Operation Gideon's Chariots, a major new offensive to, quote, achieve the goals in this war, the release of the remaining October 7 hostages and the defeat of Hamas. To Israel, the escalation may mean the end game. To Gaza, it means more casualties, more horror and loss. To the rest of the world, it's a mark of just how unsuccessful recent international pressure on resolving this conflict has been.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier.
Nope.
The energy of Donald Trump.
One of the worst aspects of how susceptible Americans are to cultish thinking, by the way, is the fact that Donald Trump's approval ratings have picked up, partially because of the tariffs rollback, because Americans don't realize that he already started the tariffs process and fucked everything up, only to roll back some of the tariffs. So he's responsible for breaking it and now responsible for, breaking it a little less. But that is just how it is. Please ban the self-proclaimed Nazi guy writing in your chat for the past 20 minutes. Who is this? There was no tariffs rollback. I mean, some tariffs rollback is enough to reinstill confidence amongst the American dummies who are just desperate to hold on to anything that will signal that Donald Trump is truly a brilliant man. What is this? What have you done for the Circassians who were a Muslim group holocausted by the Russians and 97% of the population gone poof? Comrade Nas, what is this? What have you done for the Muslim community in the Levant? Charity for whom? People in the Levant are not richer because of you. What have you done for the Circassians? What? Dude, what are you talking about? What the hell? Bam? I'm so confused. What? Hasan watches cartoon porn. That's all I got. Wait, what? But don't Turks fuck little boys? What the fuck? Oh my God. Oh my Lord. This dude is fucking gross, dude. What the hell? This is what I mean. This is what I mean when I say like the internet has bricked people, dude. That's not some shit you could say in the real world. Like that, saying something like that in broad daylight in public would probably get you collapsed on. Okay? But when you're online, you can just operate this way and not worry at all. And as a matter of fact, you can go and enjoy other communities that also share this kind of fucking gross ass perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like this kind of incredibly antisocial personality disordered behavior is straightforwardly celebrated online now, especially with like the new 4chanification of Twitter. I think the problem lies with you knowing it's haram yet still carry doing it. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. I don't think it is. Okay, that's my point. I don't believe that. Anyway, let's continue.
Trump's inauguration promises seem to have been sapped by reality. He cut a weary figure returning from the White House from his Middle East trip.
Yeah, this shit was bunk, by the way. The entire thing was just him filling up his pockets. I don't want to be the I told you so guy, but you know, I did not have a lot of faith in the Trump team actually turning around and doing something that would be moral, something that allowed the Palestinians to fucking breathe and live normal lives again in terms of pushing Israel to stop doing a genocide. They did not do that. And they simply, instead of doing that, they simply went in, lined their pockets up, and then fucked off. They also totally lied to the Hamas envoys and said, nope, no deal for you, no good faith deal. Why would you ever expect? I'll be honest. The notion that Donald Trump is actually going to keep his previous obligations is so silly, especially when we're thinking about the fact that when he was president the first time, like, what was his signature thing? What did he do initially out of the gate? He threw away the Iran denuclearization agreement, right? So he is known as the guy who fucks up pre-established deals. Now, of course, no, I'm not going to watch that, dude. I'm not. The Asian sensation, listen, please stop. I know the Houthis made a cover song for a Vietnamese revolutionary song. I don't want to even entertain the notion of getting banned over some stupid shit. Please open up your brain a little bit, okay? Like, it's great and it's wonderful, but are you guys all stupid? Have you drank the dumb juice? Like, what's going on here? It has nothing to do with whether or not this is appropriate for me to play on stream and everything to do with what people will do, okay? There are probably 100 people watching right now waiting for me to click on something like that so they can immediately mass report it and then try to get me fucking banned. Do you understand? Anyway, no disrespect. I know this is cool and I'll look at it on my own time, but you know, I can't do it on stream. And all the people that are like, no, you got to watch this, stop. I know as a Viet chatter trying to have Vietnam mentioned on the HasanAbi stream, we've already, you know. Okay, so as I was saying, where was I? Oh, as far as like the Hamas envoys, like they have nothing, right? The people that are within the people that are in Hamas, they have nothing. This was a last-ditch Hail Mary effort, okay? That's all this was. That's all this was for them with the false hope that Donald Trump will react like a normal human being. Maybe he's too annoyed by Benjamin Netanyahu, and maybe they will turn around and potentially cut a deal to implement a ceasefire. But Trump obviously has no respect for Muslims in general, especially Muslims who are vulnerable and don't have anything. If Hamas had a better position overall militarily against Israel, I think Trump would be more willing to listen. If Palestinians had more natural resources that they could offer to the United States, he's a deal maker, and that in the sense that like he's just a selfish piece of shit, right? Then there could potentially be some considerations for their position. But as it stands, they are a totally captive population that is being ethnically cleansed by Israel, America's greatest ally. And also, he recognizes that do you dislike Israelis? Not all Israelis, but anyone who defends Israel's actions, yes, I dislike them. I think they're gross. It's like asking me, would I like, Germans during the Nazi reign? I would not. Okay? Yes. Fuck Israel. Israel can suck my dick. Okay. Anyway, and those who defend Israel can also suck my dick. So, as I was saying, this was a last-ditch effort from Hamas, and it did not work. It did not work out. And the reason why it did not work out is because Donald Trump is a horrible monster, just as Joe Biden was a horrible monster. The only difference here is that Donald Trump is willing to sometimes embarrass the Israelis, as opposed to Joe Biden, who was terrified of the prospect. Doors open. Like, Joe Biden didn't even want to come across like he's hurting the feelings of the Israeli politicians and the Israeli generals, whereas Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck.
With investment deals and a renewed bond with Syria under his belt, but no grand bargain in the form of a Gaza breakthrough to boast of, even the fist bump was at best half-hearted. He'd barely left the region before Israel announced its new offensive.
Yeah, here's the classic. While all this is happening, David M. Friedman, monster, okay, personal account, served as U.S. ambassador to Israel 2017 to 2021, turns around and says, send him off to Gaza. I'm sure he will receive a warm welcome from Hamas right before they throw him off the roof. And it's so crazy because, like, no, they wouldn't do that, actually. The greatest threat for anyone living in the Gaza Strip is not fucking Hamas, man. What are you talking about? It's Israel. Anyone who says that, oh, if you go to Gaza, they'll kill you. Yeah, they will. But the they there isn't Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The they there is American bombs being dropped by Israeli Air Force. By the Israeli Air Force. That's who the they is in this situation. These people are so fucking insane, dude. There's not even a fucking roof left in the goddamn Strip, and these motherfuckers are like, they throw you off the roof, dude. They hate gay people. Also, controversial opinion, but even if every single fucking Gazan was the worst homophobe I've ever met in my entire life, I still don't think they deserve to be genocided, okay? No, even if they were all anti-Semitic and homophobic, I still don't think they deserve to be genocided, okay? That's it. Do you? Who agrees with this statement? What the fuck? Yeah, call me woke of the day, I guess, but nothing justifies a genocide. Even another genocide doesn't justify a genocide. That's it. That's the point.
Hours of the escalation, Hamas and Israel agreed to a fresh round of ceasefire talks in Doha. In Gaza, those talks don't seem particularly loud and nowhere near urgent enough.
We had hope because Trump had said there was a surprise. We thought that would be a resolution to all of this, but every time now they say there's a surprise.
Xenophobe, English is not my native language. Why you got triggered? Why you got triggered? Sleepy Ho will be out in no time. Oh, Sleepy Joe? Yeah. You got triggered. Israel number one. Israel number one. No politic. No politic here. Israel number one.
the number of martyrs and wounded rises, and the bombardments increase.
Faras Al-Mansi was asleep with her children when her camp outside Al-Aqsa Hospital was hit. The children have no toys to play with, but that's the least of their worries. Now they have no shelter, no food, and no idea what to do next.
Well, Ian Lennon is a consultant in emergency medicine who's currently volunteering in Gaza with the charity UK Med. When I spoke to him earlier, I asked what things had been like over the last few days.
Certainly, there's a lot of activity going on around the hospital in terms of explosions that we can hear and small arms fire at quite some distance from us, to be fair. I visited NASA Hospital on Thursday. And they were seeing daily mass casualty incidents of 5 or 6 severely injured patients.
We've seen lots of reports about difficulties getting access to aid, to food. That's what we've been hearing on the ground. What are you seeing?
So we have a reasonable supply following the ceasefire. We had the opportunity to bring in quite a lot of supplies, but we're now very much in the position where we're running out of simple staple items like bandages and dressings. And some of our medicines, the ones which we're using more frequently, pain relievers and so on, are also becoming really quite tight at the moment.
There's going to be a bigger operation that is happening. Are you concerned about more people coming from the north?
Zeno JPEG's last message is the perfect encapsulation of why what Israel's doing is so fucking cooked. There is no self-reflection as of the effects of this war on the global perception of the Star of David for Judaism being co-opted for genocide. Why are you all triggered by a flag? Because what Israel has done is a genocide, while also Israel has slapped the Star of David all over this fucking genocide. And therefore, for a lot of people who recognize the genocide for what it is, you flying that fucking flag is understandably being received as you flying the fucking swastika. That's it. It's because Israel is a fascist country doing a genocide. And on a good day, when it's not doing a genocide, it's still an apartheid. So it's the same exact thing. It is the same exact principle behind a fucking Nazi coming in here and being like, it's just a flag. Why do you hate the swastika? Like, yeah. Of course people are going to be frustrated by this, you know? And now you just go, oh, no need to wish me death, though. Why are you triggered by a flag? No need to wish me death, though. I don't even know who the fuck is wishing you death. But don't fucking try to self-victimize here. You know exactly what you're doing. Here, I'll help you out, okay? Like, get the fuck out of here. Once again, fuck Israel. And if you defend Israel, then fuck you.
North to the south where you are, what impact would that have?
We're certainly planning for a wave of people to come through our hospital at some point over the next few days. Almost certainly, we will start to see an increase in activity from patients, from people being displaced down from the north and from other areas near us. And also as other hospitals are losing their facilities, we're having to take transfers from those facilities. And we're already seeing that on a daily basis.
Capacity-wise, how are you doing? What are beds looking like? How are people?
I agree with you. Would you agree that yelling Free Palestine at someone who you know is Jewish but have no idea on their stance on the genocide could be anti-Semitic? I don't know. Why are you fucking even asking this hypothetical here? Okay? Why don't you just be a normal person and have a normal conversation with your friends? I don't... Like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't give a shit, okay? Like, what is this fucking hypothetical, dude? What is this hypothetical? What is going on here, okay? Yes, the assertion that all Jews are in support of Israel's genocide is inherently anti-Semitic. It's also an assertion that is not unwarranted at this stage, considering the amount of fucking media that says, no, this is packaged up with all Jews, actually. This is for all Jews, by all Jews. This is all Jews care about, and this is all Jews love. So while it is inherently an anti-Semitic statement, okay, or an inherently anti-Semitic act, The reason why many people believe in this inherently anti-Semitic act is precisely the reason why I spend every fucking day decoupling Zionism from Judaism, and yet still get ass blasted by every single Jewish advocacy group that actually is an Israel advocacy group that fucking brands me as the most dangerous anti-Semite terrorist in America. That's it. You even have Israel supporting Jews telling anti-Zionist Jews that they have to support Israel, and then they cry about anti-Semitism resulting from the genocide. Exactly.
Coping.
So it's important to remember that actually most of the staff that we have here in the hospital are actually Palestinian nationals. So they are working very hard for us here and working very hard for their...
You're promoting Hamas propaganda? Yeah, Hamas propaganda. Channel 4 News directly talking to a white doctor, white British doctor. Yes, what you are doing is unironically promoting Hamas. You are promoting Hamas. That's what you're doing. You're associating Hamas with a positive association that people have with a fucking doctor, a Westerner, a white Westerner doctor. So yeah, you're not wrong. You're saying this, but you don't realize the impact that you're having. You are, once again, participating in the negative polarization against Israel. So congratulations. Keep doing it.
Their countrymen, but at the same time, they are also having to go home and live in bombed out houses and tents, which are putting a certain amount of psychological strain on everybody here. Everybody tells us that.
Yeah, if like eyewitness testimony from a white Westerner doctor that's working in a Palestinian hospital is Hamas propaganda, then yeah, the truth is Hamas propaganda. What you consider to be Hamas propaganda is simply the truth. Because yes, what Hamas is saying about the situation on the ground in Gaza is the fucking truth. What Israel, on the other hand, keeps saying about the situation on the ground in Gaza is not the truth. It's that simple. You are an adult. You can make up your own mind from the accurate assessment of the reality on the ground.
They are hungry. We are seeing quite a lot of people simply with fatigue and lethargy because they're not getting enough food now.
What are some of the personal stories that you're seeing of people coming in? What are they telling you?
Because I'm an emergency medicine doctor, I tend to see the more severely injured, and they're less able to tell me some of those stories. When I was visiting NASA, we had a family of 4 from a shelled house who came in, who had all been crushed under the rubble. And it was less that they'd been directly injured by the missile. It was more the falling masonry. One of them had died shortly after we'd managed them in the emergency department. We transferred them for further imaging and investigation, and they died whilst we were performing that.
Ian Lennon, thank you very much for your time indeed. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Earlier, I also spoke to James Elder, UNICEF Global Spokesman, who's been to Gaza many times. He's currently in Geneva. I began by asking him for the latest updates from his team on the ground.
Horrendous. I don't think I've heard the level of despair and despondency. The bombardments have been as ferocious as anything we've seen in months. We're almost at like a massacre a day now. So you have got intense bombardments, heavy tank work, 24/7, and of course, Aisha, more than 2 months with nothing. No food, no medicines, no commercial activity, no aid, nothing entering the Gaza Strip apart from bombs for more.
Why is there not a single Chinese doctor that has gone to Gaza? Why is it all Westerners that care about Gaza? Actually, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm pretty sure we don't really get a lot of coverage in the West about like what China is doing in the region. I remember hearing about like Chinese airdrops happening, but I don't know. I haven't like investigated it any further. Like Chinese humanitarian aid in Gaza, but I think it was fake. Like people are saying that China was airdropping aid into famined areas in Gaza, but I don't think that was like that is a real thing that took place. And also, there's one other thing here as well. Kojat denies a lot of people that try to. Maybe it's that. No, there is something else. There is something else that I got to talk about with respect to there is something else I got to talk about with respect to China's relationship with Israel. A lot of people don't realize that China is a major trading partner with Israel. People don't realize this. I've talked about this quite a bit in the beginning, and it bears repeating. China is a major trading partner to Israel. China's surveillance technology that was utilized in Xinjiang has been utilized in Israel in the West Bank, in occupied Palestinian territory. China has engaged in initially engaged in a company that they bought. There's an Israeli company that the Chinese government purchased, and initially they had a blockade on like building and settlements in like illegal West Bank settlements, but they've actually revoked that blockade as well. So now, after purchasing the Israeli company, they literally also build. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Thank you, Chatter, for sending me this. How China is quietly aiding Israel's settlement enterprise away from Beijing's lofty rhetoric about sustained illegal settlements. Okay. Hawara is a small Palestinian village near Nablus, surrounded by some of the most violent and ideologically extreme Zionist settlements in the country, including Yitzhar. When I asked about what he meant, he told me Chinese workers are living and working in nearby settlements. I believe there's like around 6,000 Chinese workers that are also participating in the building of settlements now in the West Bank as well, which initially they were not. Initially they had said that they wouldn't, but here, ironically, this reality stands in direct contradiction of China's own stated policy. A decade ago, it forbade Chinese construction crews from working in Israeli settlements. Back to 2015, China signed a bilateral labor agreement with Israel that included a stipulation preventing Chinese workers from being employed in the occupied West Bank. Notably, this condition was motivated by safety concerns rather than a principled stance against the illegality or immorality of settlement construction. Israel is now at ESC. What is this? Oh, do you guys mean that Israel is performing on Eurovision? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. BDS wants you to boycott ESC, chat. Yeah, I'm not going to watch that anyway. Also, fuck Israel once again. If something crazy happens, we'll obviously cover it. However, in 2016, these safety concerns appeared to have diminished when China acquired Ahava, a settlement-based company located in Mitzpe Shalem. 1 year later, both countries signed another labor agreement to bring in 6,000 Chinese construction workers to Israel under the same conditions. Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nahshon confirmed the deal was based on the concern for the safety and security of the workers. However, Chinese officials responded by stating that the real issue was not safety, but China's objection to the construction of the settlements. Yet my interviews with the residents from Nablus to Ramallah to Hebron made clear that Chinese workers remain present and involved in settlement expansion. This raises questions about the sincerity of China's supposed opposition to Israeli settlement activity. So, China has offered Israel surveillance technology that they have used internally in Xinjiang, so that Israel can use that same surveillance technology in the West Bank. And China is a major trading partner to Israel as well. This is something that I have talked about quite a bit. And, of course, this is also part of the reason why I always say, in terms of foreign policy, China is incredibly restrained, but also incredibly self-serving, pragmatic to a fault, and does not have any sort of like real ideological conviction towards genocide. Like, they will say that they're anti-genocide. They'll criticize Israel, but that's only for political posturing purposes. Okay? That's only for political posturing purposes. But having said that, even in terms of their political posture, obviously they are far more restrained in their allegiance to Israel, as opposed to like countries that directly give a steady flow of weapons to Israel, or refuse to criticize Israel, or refuse to do anything about Israel's actions, like America being the primary party here that's the most responsible for Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. Don't they have a disposition towards Islam also, like what they're doing to the Uyghurs? No. Not necessarily. Their anti-Uyghur movement that was also wholly unjustifiable and included dragnets and mass surveillance was on the boundaries of Uyghur separatism. Okay? Now, did they absolutely fucking go above and beyond just the Uyghur separatists? They certainly did. But overall, China has, in spite of their attitude towards religion as a state, which also is anti-Christian as well. There's still a fuck ton of mosques all around China as well. There's like Chinese Muslims all around Xinjiang either. This isn't propaganda that is defensive of the Chinese state. I'm just telling you exactly what it is. As long as you are Hanified thoroughly and a part of the in-group, the Chinese government lets you practice your religion. But they are certainly, as a state, not exactly pro-religion at all. They are very anti-religion. And it doesn't just mean against Islam either. It's Christianity too. Like Xi Jinping recently banned missionary work in China. This happened like a couple months ago. Yeah, back shots only. All right. Where were we?
More than 2 months.
And James,
why are we on China's flaws right now? We were covering Gaza 2 minutes ago. The reason why I was talking about that is because I was talking about China's flaws specifically on Palestine. That's it. Like that's literally the reason why we're talking about China, because I briefly brought up because the chatter asked me like, what is China's involvement in terms of like defending the Palestinians, and I told them that like China overall is not as pro-Palestine as they present themselves to be, but having said that, they certainly are nowhere near as bad as like even Turkey is in terms of direct material support. Like Turkey has a shit ton more power over Israel, power that it refuses to enforce, pressure that it refuses to apply to Israel. Turkey could shut off the energy grid of Israel tomorrow, yesterday, whenever it wants to. But of course, it will never do that, right? So when Erdogan says like, oh, fuck Israel, whatever, that's entirely different. Now, China could also implement a blockade of sharing technology with Israel or being a large trading partner to Israel. But from what I understand, and there's not a lot of great reporting on this, American technology makes its way to China by way of Israel due to this major like major trading partner status that China has with Israel. So Israel has been helpful for Chinese security interests in the past, at least as far as I read on the matter. Israel will sometimes literally give American weapons that they're not supposed to China as a part of this trade relationship, allowing China to have access to the technology, allowing China to have access to technology and weapons that they normally would not have access to. American weapons that they normally would be effectively blocked out of purchasing or even dismantling and learning about. So yeah, Israel is a very self-interested party here, and so is China.
Painting such a bleak picture, but just going into the granular level on some of the stories, some of the individual people who are going through this on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, well, so a woman I spoke to yesterday who I've been in touch with quite a lot, who's had an amputation and desperately needs a medical evacuation, but the line she used to me was the look in her children's eyes. She's no longer sure if it's hunger or fear.
Speaking of that, all this week we have seen horrific images of malnourished children. Donald Trump saying a lot of people are starving this week. How many children do you think are affected? What proportion of the population now is at risk of malnutrition?
The entire child population is at risk of malnutrition. There's no doubt, and we're not hyperbolic with this. Everything we say is based.
Did you just accuse the Middle Eastern Eye of being CIA for reporting on China? That's insane. I guess I'm CIA too. No, they fucking care about Palestine. They care about the genocide of Palestinians. And so, of course, they're going to offer honest reporting. Middle Eastern outlets reporting on China might as well be the CIA is crazy. Okay? No, they're being honest in their reporting. It is appropriate for them to also cover it's totally appropriate for them to cover and criticize the lack of involvement from China in terms of applying political pressure beyond posturing against Israel at the United Nations.
On data, and what you're alluding to here is the world's biggest nutritional body that looked at the level of famine risk in Gaza. And yes, people are now starving. Now, you know, starving is something that it's not a natural disaster. It's being inflicted on the powerless, and starving is a pretty horrible thing to see. People are eating in fancy restaurants 20 or 30 miles away. It's beyond the pale now.
I want to ask you about a specific report that we've seen about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Swiss registered, led by a former US Marine. They're saying that they wouldn't be able to feed some of the most vulnerable civilians from the militarized compounds that it plans to set up. What have you made of their plans so far, and do you have hope that it will be able to help?
Right now, during the ceasefire, United Nations and partners were working from around 400 distribution places, 400 to reach 2.1 million people. This organisation is talking about a handful, and a handful in the south. So it's using aid as a bait to force people to go to the south to a handful of distribution points. So you're supposed to walk a few miles, pick up 25 kilograms. So a woman I spoke to 10 days ago with 2 children whose husband's been killed and she's got an amputation. On one leg with 2 little children, she's to walk several miles, queue for however long, if she gets to the south, to pick up her 25 kilograms. It's unworkable, and the only way to save that population is to let the legal...
It's a shame because it needs to help Palestinians a lot more. Yeah, I mean, of course.
...entities and follow international humanitarian law, let the United Nations do what it's been doing.
We've seen today reports that people are back around the table. You know, many people have been speaking out about the suffering that they have seen in Gaza, but isn't it the harsh reality that Israel's tactics here have worked in bringing Hamas back to the negotiating table, and humanitarian aid was not a condition for these talks?
Look, I'm not privy to the talks, and I think that there's been so much discussion in terms of where the goodwill has lied in terms of negotiations. The fact is, international law, of which Israel is a signatory, and Israel is the occupying power, has a legal responsibility to allow food aid to not starve a population. Those things are very, very clear. So whatever discussions are going on, and I'm not privy to those, whatever discussions are going on, you cannot use starvation as a method to negotiate.
James Elder, thank you very much indeed for your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Hasan.
We begin with the latest on the Israel-Gaza war, and dozens of people have been killed in the latest Israeli strikes on Gaza as a major new offensive begins. The Indonesian hospital in the north of the territory says at least 58 people have been killed today. Officials in Gaza say that around 250 people have been killed since Thursday. Well, Israel says its latest intensification of military action is aimed at defeating Hamas and securing the release of...
I agree that China could and should do more, but the list of countries doing better than them is Yemen, Lebanon, South Africa. Who else? It's weird to hold every country to a much lower standard than China in this regard. Assuming China is always lying about what it's doing is such a U.S.-China watcher perversion. No. There's a reason why I don't shift my entire focus to what China is doing and what China is not doing. And that is because, as you've said, there are plenty of other countries that are far more responsible for the bombing and starvation of children. Having said that, however, China is one of the most powerful nations on the planet, and with a country with that level of power and prominence on the global stage comes a lot of responsibility. Just as I also say, Turkey, for example, is a lot more involved than China is on the matter. And what did they do with all of their involvement? They don't use any real mechanisms of pressure. They just simply offer lip service. So Turkey, in this regard, given its power to pressure China, is even more responsible than China, or pressure Israel is even more responsible than China. Having said that, China does have a lot of fucking power. China, you think a country that is a major trading partner with Israel doesn't have the capacity to be like, we are going to fly in directly, and we are going to force ourselves to go into the Gaza Strip. with Chinese nationals and offer aid. Do you think that China doesn't have that capacity? China could quite literally, as the second largest trading partner of Israel, say, hey, tomorrow we're sending fucking humanitarian aid by way of Jordan. We are going to fly into Jordan. And then we are going to fly from Jordan into the drop sector flights into the Gaza Strip. And we are going to send in our Chinese nationals alongside humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. We are going to bring in food into the Gaza Strip. They have Israel would never be able to say no to that. I'm talking about right now. Oh my God, this is literally what they did a month and a half ago. What are you saying? That's so stupid. I'm talking about currently, chatter. I know that that's what all of the international community did during the ceasefire. I know. I'm saying Israel could do that right now and therefore cut away at Israel's ambition of re-invading the Gaza Strip. They could do that right now, forcing a de facto ceasefire for Israel. Brother, Netanyahu's insane. He'd call China anti-Semitic and go cry to Trump. It doesn't fucking matter. It's China. You can't pressure China. It's the second most powerful, if not currently, maybe the most powerful nation on the planet. You're out of your mind. Europe could do that too. Yes, European countries could European countries have less power because they're beholden to American interests. It's hard explaining that China's policy is to stay out of major power struggles and balancing American, Russian, and local countries while trying to ensure stability for their workforce. They can do this, but not without breaking their nothing ever happens like policy, which they keep for a good reason. I understand that. I'm just simply stating what China could do. China has a tremendous amount of power that it wields in the global stage, and they could use that in this regard, but they're choosing not to, and that is important to recognize.
Of the remaining hostages being held in Gaza.
Stop making excuses for China,
the live
chatters.
pictures looking across the
I am the #1 China dick rider. If I am not making excuses for China in this regard, then you shouldn't be either. That's crazy.
From Israel into northern Gaza. Well, all of these developments come as the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has been speaking, calling for a permanent and immediate ceasefire. He's also called on Israel to lift its blockade on humanitarian aid, which a UN-backed assessment says has left millions of Palestinians at critical risk of famine. In the last few hours as well, rescue workers in Gaza say at least 10 people have been killed by Israeli strikes, 7 in the southern city of Khan Yunis and 3 more in Jabalia in the north. Well, this is the worst violence in the Gaza Strip since Israel resumed its offensive in March. In the last hour, a media advisor to Hamas has told the BBC that a new round of negotiations has officially begun in Doha. Our correspondent, Wira Davis, is in Jerusalem with the latest.
Yeah, this is an ominous moment. The Israeli military has already now announced the start of Operation Gideon's Chariots. And if the full force of what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised is unleashed, then we can expect in coming days and weeks thousands of Israeli troops on the ground in Gaza, occupying for a long time positions in the Palestinian territory and pushing the civilian population southwards.
Yeah,
we've had
a really good
days and today with increasingly intensive Israeli military airstrikes and incursions from sea, land and air against positions particularly in northern and central Gaza, but as you were saying, against positions in the south as well. And this is all part of what Israel says an attempt to finally defeat and destroy Hamas. Now, as you were also intimating there are very faint hopes that a breakthrough may be achieved with ceasefire talks in Doha, but thus far they haven't borne any fruit. So all the while the Israeli military operation ramps up with the beginning of this operation which they had been threatening for some time.
That's Wira Davis in Jerusalem there for us. Well, we can now speak to our Gaza correspondent, Rushdie Abu-Alouf, who is currently in Cairo. Always good to talk to you, Rushdie. You've been speaking to a Hamas spokesperson about the ongoing talks to try and secure a ceasefire. Just tell us about that conversation.
Yeah, we understand that the new session for ceasefire talks has begun about half an hour ago, 4:30 Doha time. Before this round of talks, there was a meeting between the Qatari Prime Minister and the Hamas Council of Leadership. The five big names in Hamas have met the Qataris for about an hour before the meeting. We understand that also the U.S. envoy Witkoff talked to the Qataris as well about resuming the talks. Well, Hamas official told the BBC that there is no precondition for this negotiation, and Hamas is still insisting in ending the war and withdrawing Israeli troops from Gaza before they went to start this talks, which, you know, that was always the obstacle, because on the other side, the Israelis want a ceasefire based in what is well known now as Witkoff proposal, which talk about releasing 10 Israeli hostages from Gaza and for the 45 days of ceasefire only.
And Rushdie, we know that right now, actually, Antonio Guterres is taking questions from journalists. He's in Baghdad at a meeting of Arab leaders. We know that Arab leaders are urging more pressure to stop the bloodshed in Gaza. What is the regional perspective on this? Of course, we saw President Trump, who was in the region. He was in the United Arab Emirates. He was in Doha as well. What is the regional perspective?
It's BBC. Of course, the Palestinian correspondent that BBC is going to have is going to be in Cairo, dude. Are you kidding me? One, because like BBC is one of the worst outlets for coverage of Palestine. Straight up. I mean, it is one of the worst outlets for coverage on Palestine, and therefore all of the Al Jazeera adjacent correspondents are de facto terrorists for the BBC. Every now and then they will ask people directly that are inside of the Gaza Strip, but those people will, if ever, usually be British nationals that are working with Doctors Without Borders or whatever.
On the pressure that needs to be put on both parties in this?
You know, we have seen a very big diplomacy from Egyptian here, from the Qataris, and from even the Turkish authority, and too many, diplomacy was involved before Trump arrived into the area. And this little was faded away very quickly when Trump departure Doha without announcing any ceasefire or anything. And from Hamas, they said, we have, released the Israeli-American soldier ahead of the Trump visit to open the gate for a new talks. The level of frustration in Gaza was very high this morning, but suddenly people started to hope that maybe these talks in Doha now can bring about something that stop the killing in Gaza. You know, over 300 people, the latest number from the Hamas-run health ministry is talking about 300 people within 48 hours were killed in Gaza. And the airstrikes is everywhere. Well, the focus of the Israeli operation is in the north. But for example, like half an hour ago, they hit two places in the middle in Deir al-Balah, killing about 9 people. So all eyes in Gaza are now focused in this meeting in Doha and hope that this will find a solution. When we talk to people about the Arab Summit, everybody was surprised. People, they don't know about it. They don't care about the Arab Summit anymore, and they believe that only the